The Championship playoff final is often described as the richest game in football, worth a guaranteed £170 million to the winning team. In no other game in world football are the financial stakes so high for the potential winners and losers. In May 2019, in the last pre-COVID-19 Championship playoff final, Aston Villa faced Derby County in front of 85,826 fans at Wembley Stadium. It was Villa's second successive playoff final, having lost 1-0 to Fulham in 2018, but this time, arguably the biggest team to have dropped out of the Premier League during the Premier League era, sealed their return to the top flight of English football at their third attempt. For Derby County, on the other hand, it was their fourth playoff campaign of the last 6 seasons, and their second final, but yet again, they found themselves on the losing side. It is interesting to contrast Aston Villa and Derby County's fortunes since that playoff final, two teams who spent heavily in the Championship, since it proves just what a lottery English football is at times. Whilst there was so little to split them at the time, just 2 points in the league table and only 1 goal at Wembley, now there is a gaping chasm between them which is larger than the Grand Canyon. Aston Villa are 11th in the Premier League at the time of this recording. They have spent over £100 million on 4 players this season, and in January, they brought Philippe Coutinho on loan to Villa Park from FC Barcelona. Derby, meanwhile, were relegated from the Championship this season following a 21-point deduction. They have sold virtually anyone who is worth anything, or who earns anything, and if a takeover isn't completed soon, like roughly when this video comes out, the club could very well cease to exist. But rest assured, English football is fine and dandy, there is nothing wrong with the current ownership and financial governance model. Move along now, nothing to see here. Anyhow, the focus of this video is Aston Villa, and given the fact that they won the Championship playoff final less than 3 years ago, you might well have thought that most of their squad and starting 11 that afternoon would still be playing for Villa. Well, not quite. In fact, just 2 of Villa's starting 11 against Derby still play for the club less than 3 years on, so I thought it might make for an interesting video to see where the rest ended up. Here is Aston Villa's starting 11 from the 2019 Championship playoff final. Where are they now? Jed Steer, Luton Town. Despite having spent 9 years contracted to Aston Villa and still actually being contracted to the club now, Jed Steer has only ever played 36 games for his parent club, and just 19 of them came in the league. That is because he has had 5 separate loan moves away from Villa Park, and he has almost always been a number 2 or number 3 when he hasn't been out on loan. But he did play in arguably Villa's most important game of the past decade at least. Having begun this season as Villa's third choice, Steer saved 2 penalties as Villa came from behind to beat West Brom in a shootout in the playoff semi-finals, and he only conceded 1 goal in the final. Following promotion, however, the club signed Tom Heaton, and now Argentina international Emi Martinez is their number 1. Currently, Steer is on loan at Luton Town, where he was targeting playoff victory once again before suffering an Achilles injury, which forced the Hatters into striking an emergency loan deal to sign Hull City backup Matt Ingram as his replacement. Ahmed Elmohammed, free agent. Sometimes I am accused of shoehorning Hull City references into videos when they aren't really needed, but they fall quite naturally with this one, partly because Steve Bruce took over at Aston Villa following a number of years managing Hull City, and he decided to sign a few of his former Tigers. Ahmed Elmohammed is among the most notable examples, having actually made more Premier League appearances for Hull City than any other player in the history of the club. Bruce was clearly a big fan of the Egyptian, having signed him at Sunderland, Hull, and finally at Villa, and Elmo made 129 appearances in 4 seasons at Villa Park. Renowned for his stamina and industry, Elmohammed could put a lovely ball into the box, but his defending was a little bit hit and miss, and he was always more suited to playing as a wingback. Villa chose not to extend Elmohammed's contract at the end of last season, meaning that the 34-year-old has now gone an entire season without a club. Axel Tuanzebe, Napoli. Aston Villa made wise use of the EFL's loan allocation in the 2018-19 season, and that wasn't Axel Tuanzebe's first taste of football at the club. Thrice signed on loan by Villa, Tuanzebe had temporary stints in Birmingham during the 2017-18, 2018-19 and 2021-22 campaigns. The pacey young centre-back, who can also deputise at fullback or in midfield, was born in DR Congo and came through the youth ranks at Manchester United. Tuanzebe is still contracted to the Red Devils, where he signed a new 3-year deal with the option of a 1-year extension last summer, and following Steven Gerrard's arrival at Villa, and supposed animosity between Gerrard due to his close ties to Liverpool and Tuanzebe's status as a Manchester United loanee, at least according to Tuanzebe's agent, led to his loan deal being terminated in January. Tuanzebe linked up with Luciano Spalletti at Napoli in Serie A instead, where he has had trouble with his back and has played just 120 minutes of football. Tyrone Mings, Aston Villa. A centre-back who wants two-footed Priti Patel harder than he has done any centre-forward, Tyrone Mings is one of only 2 starters for Aston Villa from the 2019 Championship playoff final who still plays for the club. A non-league player until the age of 19, Mings made his name in the Football League with Ipswich Town before joining Bournemouth for £8 million. Once a left-back, despite the fact that he is 6'5" tall, Mings could never really get a run of games at Bournemouth. But he was so impressive during the second half of Villa's promotion campaign, having joined on loan in the January, that the Cherries were able to command a £20 million fee for him, with the potential to rise to £25 million, subject to add-ons. Mings has captained Villa since the club record sale of Jack Grealish, and he has also won 17 caps for England, functioning predominantly as a deputy to Harry Maguire. Neil Taylor, free agent. One of only a very small but gradually increasing number of British footballers of South Asian descent, Neil Taylor was born in Wales to a Bengali mother from India, and he won 43 caps for Wales between 2010 and 2019. Taylor joined Aston Villa in a player swap deal in January 2018 in exchange for Jordan Ayew, which also saw Swansea pay Villa £5 million to sweeten the deal. A regular for Villa in the Championship, the arrival of Matt Targett following promotion significantly reduced his game time. Taylor joined Middlesbrough in November 2021, who I was about to call his current club, but literally as I was recording this, Borough released their retained list for next season, and Taylor isn't on it, meaning that the 33-year-old has been released by the club and is now a free agent, or at least he will be whenever his contract actually expires. What are the odds of him going back to Wrexham this summer, I wonder, now that they are spending fairly big? I wouldn't bet against it, you know. John McGinn, Aston Villa. The only other player, alongside Tyrone Mings, who started for Aston Villa in the 2019 Championship playoff final and still plays for the club, John McGinn is living proof that scouts and executives at English football clubs aren't very good. It was very clear from McGinn's time at Hibernian that he was a midfielder of real distinction, and I said numerous times on this channel that whoever signed him would be getting themselves a bargain, even if they paid Hibs £10 million. In the end, Steve Bruce and Aston Villa only had to pay £3 million to poach McGinn and convince him to join them instead of Celtic, and unsurprisingly, that has proved to be an absolute bargain. A brilliant midfield all-rounder, McGinn has played 142 games for Villa to date, and amidst talk of interest from Manchester United, a £50 million asking price seems to be the suggestion, which proves just what a bargain McGinn was back in 2018. Conor Howrahan, Sheffield United. The islands of Great Britain and Ireland are certainly well represented in Aston Villa's 2019 Championship playoff final winning 11. As Conor Howrahan's inclusion means that we have now had English, Welsh, Scottish and Irish internationals feature, and still only 7 players in. We've also had an Egyptian international, in case you're just keeping count of internationals more broadly, but Egypt is not part of the island of Great Britain, nor the island of Ireland, as those of you who are as spectacularly brilliant at geography as I am will know all too well. Howrahan commanded the same fee as McGinn, £3 million, when he arrived from Barnsley at Aston Villa in 2017, but whilst he was a key man for Villa in the Championship, he has had less of an impact in the Premier League. He spent the second half of last season on loan at Swansea City, having made just 4 appearances in the first half of the season at Villa, and he is now chasing another playoff success story on loan at Sheffield United. Jack Grealish, Manchester City. Jack Grealish was always a phenomenally talented player in terms of his technique, close control, and dribbling ability, but he had also earned a reputation for causing 1 or 2 problems, getting involved in all sorts of silly off-the-pitch stuff, and not always being the most consistent. That all changed, or mostly changed, when Dean Smith arrived midway through the 2018-19 season and made him Villa's club captain. Grealish seemed to flourish in the new role and, with a new sense of responsibility, working alongside Smith, and he was the club's star man as they flew up the league table. Grealish continued his ascent following promotion to the Premier League, integral to Villa's survival in their first season back in the top flight, at the end of which he won his first call-up to the England team. Grealish has since won 19 caps for the Three Lions, and last summer he became the most expensive British player and the most expensive signing ever made by a British club in a £100 million move to Manchester City. Albert Adomah, Queen's Park Rangers. A real Championship stalwart over the past decade, Albert Adomah has won promotion from the Championship at both Middlesbrough and Aston Villa, but both teams seem to feel as though that was the wide man's ceiling. Arguably Villa's standout player in the 2017-18 season, in which he scored 15 goals, Adomah was less prolific as the Villains won promotion, but he still played 42 times. Despite playing so frequently that season, he was one of many players in Dean Smith's squad whose contracts came to an end when the season concluded, and he was one of many who weren't offered a new deal. Adomah joined Nottingham Forest, where he spent just a single season, and he has spent the last 2 seasons contracted to Queen's Park Rangers. Interestingly, Adomah is apparently the record appearance holder in the second tier of English football, having played 456 Championship fixtures in total. I found it pretty difficult to verify that statistic, so, I wouldn't go putting my life on it, but it is a heck of a lot of games in a single league, whether it is the record or not. Especially, I should say, a league outside of a top flight, if that makes sense. Alright, shut up. Tammy Abraham, Roma. There are a few real success stories in this 11, and Tammy Abraham is undoubtedly one of them. It must be said, Abraham's success has not come as an enormous surprise. He previously scored prolifically in the Championship at Bristol City, and only Teemu Pukki outscored him in the Championship during his season at Villa. But there are players who showed that kind of promise at a young age, particularly outside of a top flight, and go on to fall by the wayside. Abraham scored 25 goals in 37 games for Villa in the Championship, and Dean Smith would have loved to have signed him permanently. Unfortunately, Chelsea were under a transfer embargo the following summer and were well aware of his talents, so Frank Lampard handed Abraham the number 9 shirt and told him that he was firmly part of his plans. Abraham scored 18 goals in his first proper season at Chelsea, but then the transfer ban ended and Chelsea went out and signed Timo Werner. Last summer, as Romelu Lukaku also arrived, Abraham departed in a £34 million move to Roma, where he has scored 25 times in Jose Mourinho's team this season. Anwar El Ghazi, Everton. The scorer of the opening goal of the 2019 Championship playoff final before John McGinn added a second and Jack Marriott bagged a consolation goal for the Rams, Anwar El Ghazi was another player who was on loan at Villa Park that season from French outfit Lille in his case. El Ghazi made a big impression at Villa Park, leading to the club paying €8 million to sign him on a permanent basis. A Dutch international who came through the youth ranks at Ajax, El Ghazi scored 11 goals at Villa last season, but his game time reduced drastically in the first half of the current campaign. Consequently, El Ghazi joined Everton on loan in January, who he is currently looking to help survive in the Premier League, having had experience of a relegation scrap at Villa. That was Villa's starting 11 against Derby in the 2019 Championship playoff final, but I will give a quick word to the substitutes that afternoon, since I know that you all want them, and I'm kind like that. Lovro Kalinic, who I thought would be a solid number 1 for Villa when they signed him, but could never really hold down a starting berth, is still contracted to the club, but is on loan with his boyhood club Hajduk Split at the moment. Defender Courtney House is still at Villa. Villa's own academy graduate, Andre Green, is now playing for Slovan Bratislava in the Slovak Superliga. Mile Jedinak has retired and works for Aston Villa as a lone player liaison. Henry Lansbury plays for Luton Town alongside Jed Steer. Glenn Whelan is now at Bristol Rovers, who just secured the most remarkable automatic promotion on the final day of the League Two season, and Joey Barton has said that he hopes the Irishman will stick around for next season in League One, despite the fact that he is 38 years old. And finally, Jonathan Kocher, who set Villa back a potential £15 million, but struggled following an ankle injury, who now plays in Qatar for Al Gharafa, a club who he has always supported since being a child. Nah, I'm just kidding. They're probably paying him an absolute fortune. Prominent Villa players from that season who weren't involved that afternoon include Orjan Nyland, who now plays for Reading, James Chester, a wonderful centre-back who has had a horrible time with injuries and has just been released by Stoke City, again just as I'm recording this, and who might retire, given that news. It's live news, as I say. I don't know. I hope he doesn't, but like I say, he's had a bad time with injuries. Alan Hutton, who has already retired, Berke Bjarnason, who now plays for Adana Demirspor, and Yannick Balassi, who is also playing in Turkey these days, alongside Gedson Fernandez and Papis Cisse at Çaykur Rizespor. That is it for today's video, but thank you all very much, as ever, for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If that was the case, then why not hit the like button? It is completely free of charge, and some say that it does bring you eternal good luck. Also, leave a comment if you have anything of interest to say, or not of interest. As always, just inane ramblings are also appreciated, and make sure that you are subscribed and have notifications turned on for inane ramblings from me, such as this, on HITC Sevens. You can also find me on social media, on either Twitter or Instagram, via the username at HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so. Cheers.